Good morning, Chairman. We're now live.
Good morning and welcome everyone present in the chamber and those listening online to the business of the Growth Scrutiny Committee. I'm Councillor Sam French and I am the chairman of this committee. Councillor Reuben Robertson, Vice Chairman, is also present. The audio-visual feed of this public meeting is being broadcast live via the County Council's website. All comments to be raised today will remain accessible online. There's no fire drill planned for this morning. In the event of a fire alarm sounding, please leave the chamber, exit the building through the reception and assemble in the front car park. Please have any mobiles, laptops and iPads on silent mode. The hearing loop is now activated. Requests to speak will be collated and announced by the Vice Chairman. I'll try to ensure that everyone has the opportunity to ask questions and make contributions. I ask that you indicate early when you wish to speak. On to apologies for absence. Do we have any apologies, Andrew?
We have apologies today from Councillor Alistair Arundel, who's been replaced by Councillor Maria Hume for this meeting only. We've also had apologies from the Executive Councillor, Councillor Liam Kelly, who's been represented today by Councillor Trevor Bridgewood. And we also have apologies from officers Laura Shepherd, Head of Commercial Infrastructure, Ben Crow, Head of Commercial Services Infrastructure. And that's it. Thank you very much, Chairman.
Thank you. And on to declaration of members' interests. Do we have any declarations to declare? Nope. On to the minutes of the last meeting held on the 28th of October 2025. This item is to approve and sign the minutes of the last meeting as a correct record, which are on pages 5 to 14 of the agenda pack. Do I have a proposer for this? Councillor Condell. And do I have a seconder? Councillor East. And that motion is moved. On to announcements by the Vice Chairman and Executive Councillors and Lead Officers. I've got no announcements to make today. Are there any announcements from Councillor Trevor Bridgewood?
Thank you, Chairman. RF Scampton, Councillor Kelly wrote to the Home Office Minister seeking confirmation that the future of the site as commercial and growth related, not as asylum centre. He's now received a response from Alex Norris, the Minister for Border Security and Asylum, stating that it will not be used for asylum accommodation and confirming that the site will be marketed for sale shortly, with the sales process envisaged to take 6 months, which is a bit disappointing because that'll take us into June next year. And as with all these things, there's the potential for slippage. So, as they say, it's not over till the fat lady sings. Farming. Following the autumn budget, Lincolnshire's family farms will continue to operate in a difficult environment with the twin challenge of tax pressures and lack of policy direction. Upward wage pressures, fiscal drag, fuel duty, increased tax take against property and dividends add to the challenges being faced on inheritance tax. Lack of certainty within the sector is having far-reaching impact, for example, in the restructuring of machinery dealer sector as farm businesses lack the confidence and sometimes the ability to invest. Lincolnshire County Council continues to support the sector, and last night we brought together members of the farming community and DEFRA civil servants so that they could hear directly from these businesses about the challenge and reality of the situation, but also about the huge opportunity that we have in Lincolnshire. We will continue to shout for the Lincolnshire farming community. Manufacturing. The recent manufacturing conference held on the 28th of November highlighted the strength and ambition for Greater Lincolnshire's manufacturing sector, bringing together businesses and industry leaders to explore innovation and growth opportunities. This year's event focused on practical steps to sharpen strategy, boost productivity, and create the conditions for sustainable growth while reinforcing the need for collaboration and investment in advanced technologies to keep our manufacturers competitive in a rapidly evolving market. The Made Smarter programme continues to deliver significant benefits for local manufacturers, driving digital adoption and innovation across the sector. We now have confirmation of a minimum of 1.9 million of funding for 26-27, which secures the programme's future and underlines its importance to our growth ambitions. Tourism. Winter nights are often the time when people start to plan their summer holidays, and therefore is now a good time to promote the county and the quality of our tourist attraction. Underlining the strength of our heritage and countryside tourism, we have had articles published in the Daily Telegraph and the Country Walking magazine about the county. Congratulations are due to several Lincolnshire winners of the Visit England accolades, our own Lincoln Castle, Mrs Smith's Cottage in Navenby, and Lincoln Guildhall. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Bridgewood. Are there any announcements from senior officers? No. Okay.
Chairman, just a point of information, if I may. Councillor Bridgewood kindly provided that briefing, but there was no mention of anything within the corporate property side of Councillor Kelly's portfolio. I hear on the grapevine that that's going to be reshuffled to Councillor Gibson, who's sat in the corner of the room. It would just like on the record, are you aware of any changes in what is going to be coming to this committee in the future? I.e., will the Growth Scrutiny Committee continue to receive property matters for scrutiny, or as well as a executive councillor reshuffle, will there be a reshuffle in the scrutiny arrangements? If you could confirm that, that would be appreciated. Thank you.
I'll have to get back to you on that one, as far as I'm aware. Councillor Gibson.
Thank you, Chairman. Morning, Councillor Dyer. Questions already. No change to the scrutiny. It's not on the grapevine. Obviously, your leader has been informed as a matter of courtesy, then it'll be coming to full council. So it's been done in the proper way, but the scrutiny won't change.
Thank you, Councillor Gibson. Is that for the remainder of this council period, or just till May, when we have the annual meeting?
As far as I'm aware, that will be till the end of this term. No, there's no change. No change planned.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to item 5, capital repairs and maintenance funding. There are exempt appendices C and D which have not been published. This is a pre-decision scrutiny report which can be found on pages 15 to 42 of the agenda pack, and invites members of the committee to consider 2026-27 capital repairs and maintenance funding prior to a decision by executive on the 6th of January 2026. As per the actions required by the views of the committee, will be reported to the executive as part of its consideration of this item. I wish to remind members that appendices C and D to this report contain exempt information under paragraph 3 of part 1 of Schedule 12A of the Local Government Act 1972. Should you wish to ask questions specifically related to these, please indicate and we will move to a closed debate. The report will be presented by Mary Marriott, Head of Facilities and Workspace Management, Andrew McLean, Assistant Director, Corporate Transformation Systems and Performance, and Interim Assistant Director for Corporate Property is also present for the debate. Over to you, Marie.
Thank you, Chairman. So, yes, I'm sharing information about the 2026-27 Capital Repairs and Maintenance Programme. The programme is made up of a number of small schemes, all of which are designed to ensure legal compliance is maintained across the portfolio, ensure that our legal obligations are met, and that the fabric integrity of the properties is maintained to ensure that the buildings remain safe for all users, and in parallel extending the life cycle of the buildings, ensuring that they remain usable for the future. The programme is split into 2 defined sections. There's corporate properties, of which there are 57 activities defined, and also schools, which there are 67 activities defined. Both of these schemes have an allocation of 3.5 million proposed. The 3.5 million within the corporate properties has a small ring-fenced allocation for county farms, for accessibility activities and asbestos, and an allocation for which will be used to cover urgent and emergent works which could negatively impact on the properties and the safety of those users. The schools funding is from the schools condition allocation from the Department of Education. A structured approach has been followed in identifying which activities will be included within the programme for 26-27, using information gathered by our surveyors during the condition surveys, which are conducted by Vinci as part of the requirement of the facilities management contract on at least 5 yearly basis. Any questions?
Councillor Corey?
Thank you, Chairman. Just for confirmation, I do want to ask some questions on it. Can you confirm whether I can ask questions in open session or if, as long as I don't mention any figures, is that correct? Or
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay.
We can move, if you want us to keep the questions related to C&D for the end, we can move into it at the end, and then you can ask your other questions now if you want.
I'm happy for them to be put in open session, but I just wanted to get that clarification. Okay. So I do have a number of questions on Appendix C. Do you want me to ask them all in one go or individually?
Is it on the on the figures in the exempt appendices, or is it on the actual appendices C? Councillor Corey.
It's on the appendices. I just want to ask questions on specific items on Appendix C. I'm happy not to mention any figures, but I just want clarification.
It's fine. Okay, yeah, it's fine. That's fine. Thank you. Sorry, I just want to clarify. Thank you. Thank you, Chairman.
Okay. Yeah. Sorry, Chiara, did you want to say something?
Would you like to do it one by one in terms of questions? It will be easier.
Yes, I will. Thank you. Thank you for spotting that. Yes, thank you. Yeah, so with your indulgence, Chairman. So my first question is about the Culture Services Estate, line L2102 on page 37. Can you please confirm whether these works include the removal of the heating duct from the centre of Gallery 2 in the Usher Gallery? So my question is, while the boiler work is being done, wouldn't it be a good idea to do the heating duct in Gallery 2, which has been on a work programme for several years, at least 3, but has never actually been done? So while you're doing that, could I ask that work is done at the same time? Thank you.
Yes, Councillor Curry, I can confirm that is in the plan for the efficiencies we can make whilst doing those works all together.
That's brilliant. Thank you. That's the best news I've had. Well, yeah, this week. My next question, Chairman, is about Leverton Fire Station. Acknowledging that this paper is about repairs and maintenance and not new build, can someone explain the repairs to Leverton Fire Station and how these fit in with the plans we already have in place for a new build fire station on another site?
So the repairs and maintenance that's defined in here, some is around safe access and egress to the site, which is obviously very important for an operational station. And the second is around surface water drainage, which is also an issue. So these works would need to be undertaken.
Thank you very much. Thank you. What plans do we have in place? Because it's not clear to put in place a more responsive and fit-for-purpose maintenance programme for our fire stations. As we know, we've got 38 of them. And many of the requested repairs to them are low-level repairs that could be done quite quickly. This has been an issue for a number of years, and it's been highlighted for a number of years. For example, some minor decorating, fixing leaky taps, that sort of thing. So what do you have in place that will be more responsive?
So we have the facilities management contract, which aims to fulfil any reactive activities. They are dealt with in the response priority depending on the nature of the works. So the more urgent activities have a higher and faster response time. With regards to internal decoration, this scheme does not seek to improve the buildings. It purely means to maintain.
If I may, Chairman, that's thank you for your response, but it's not that responsive. In my former life, I used to go to fire stations, a couple of times a week and listen to the firefighters saying, we've got a leaky tap, we've got this, we've got that. We've put requests in for repairs. It could be months before something's done. So, from experience, it's not actually that responsive. So what can we do to make sure that our estate around the county does actually get the repairs they need? You know, the quite simple, quick repairs. It could be putting up a shelf or something like that, just to make working in those buildings much more fit for purpose. Thank you.
So we recently entered into a new contract for facilities management, which started on the 1st of April, which included some changes to the response times and resolution times. We're also aiming to ensure that the internal LCC facilities management team push through all the urgent activities as quickly as we possibly can. So those changes should have brought about an improvement to that response time.
More good news, Chairman. Thank you. How are we working with City of Lincoln Council to ensure that graffiti doesn't spoil the external fascia of the Usher Gallery? This is another thing that's been going on for many years. As we know, we don't own the Usher Gallery, but we operate it. The grounds are still owned and the building's still owned by City of Lincoln Council. So working with our partners at City of Lincoln Council, we have in place CCTV, but that's a problem that's still happening, plus antisocial behaviour on the front steps by the main door. What are we doing about that?
So as and when we receive a request through the Property Service Centre, we do actually respond and attend to anything that's within our demise to do so. The CCTV is also a process which has helped us with that because they can inform us more quickly. So as and when those issues arise, we do attend to them.
Thank you. Getting to the end, Chairman. Have we noticed that there's been a reduction in antisocial behaviour and graffiti with our interventions, or is that still quite problematic?
I don't believe we've had a huge amount of those types of activities in recent months, so the CCTV seems to be helping in that area, yeah.
Thank you. My final question, and it's a bit of a biggie. Would it be possible to have a report just specifically on a condition report of the built assets in the culture services portfolio, namely the Castle, Museum of Lincolnshire Life, Battle of Britain Memorial Flight Visitors Centre, Lincoln Museum, given that these buildings actually bring in excess of £14 million annual visitor spend? I would appreciate that. If that's possible, thank you.
It is possible, yes. I can arrange that for you quite quickly, so we'll get something over to you.
Yeah, that's for the committee, not for me personally. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Corey. Councillor Condell.
Sorry, thank you. I'm looking at the alternative considerations here, and I just want to check that we have looked at increasing the budget now, and to see if by increasing the budget we might save costs in the long term.
We have looked to increase the budget. There is an option in there to do so. Our limitations may be around delivery for 26-27, but going forward in future years, that is something we could plan for.
I'd like to see that. Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Thank you. Do we have... Oh, Councillor Dyer.
Thank you, Chairman. Within the report, I don't know whether it's just because of the changes that are currently happening. There's reference to the former Deputy Chief Executive, I think, within the report. I think there's various job titles need to be changed throughout, I've noticed, but I appreciate that that's a recent change. But just on the report itself, we heard previously by Councillor Kelly, his I think Lincolnshire First, I think he mentioned, and 2.2 within the report, it mentioned that we used 41 subcontractors, 23 of those being Lincolnshire based. Do we have a breakdown of spend by those subcontractors? Because it's all well and good having the numbers, but we could have 23 on the books that we spend very little with and the rest out of county. So could we have a breakdown of spend would be my first question, please, Chairman.
Yes, that's certainly something we can do.
Thank you. Just moving on within the report, you clearly highlight that the non-schools budget is 3.5 million and there's a further 8.5 million estimated work to be done, and they're classed as urgent, category 1 in the framework that you provided. You kindly sent me the document of the 8.5 million after I requested it. But how confident are you that you're going to actually complete that 8.5 million plus whatever else comes in within the timescale that you've set out? Because within this year, we've got 3.5 million allocated for capital projects. So that means within the next couple of years, we're going to have to up that spend. Is that something that you foresee actually happening? Are we actually going to complete all 8.5 million pounds worth of work plus whatever else comes in as well? Or will some of these fall behind even further?
So they would be reprioritised based on the urgency of the nature of the works, but also some of the assets, the portfolio may change during that time period. So some of the assets may be disposed of, they may be mothballed, whereby we would no longer use them. So we would ramp down those maintenance activities. So that list is a constantly changing list. It goes through numerous reviews based upon the most recent condition surveys of the properties. So are we likely to complete them all? Probably not, but they remain there and visible to us so that we know what work is out there for us to complete. It will be prioritised on whether the building's needed, whether the works are needed, and how we intend to use those buildings going forwards.
And on that, there's 4 categories, isn't there? Essential work required within 2 years, then there's 2, which is desirable, 3 to 5, 3 long-term work beyond 5, and then there's future planning. When I was going through the report, I don't think there's any mention of anything within 2, 3 or 4, and I assume will work be happening on those in the background potentially, or they might come forward to. Would you be able to provide to committee a breakdown of how many schemes or financial value of work that needs to be carried out in 2, 3 and 4 as well? Is that something that could be provided, please?
Yes, we can provide that, yeah. I would caveat that with the fact that those works may be so far in the future, they would be very, very tentative costs, if that makes sense.
I appreciate that. Just the context just isn't, it would just be helpful to see. Page 31 in the report, and it mentions, it's in respect to Lincoln Castle, fall arrest eye bolts. What are they?
So they're a safety system which allows us to safely access around the castle walls and on the banks. So without those, we're unable to maintain the external faces of the castle, and also we're unable to get down onto the banks without them. So they are essential for our contractors who complete the works up there to work safely.
So on that, and if I remember rightly, tell me if I'm wrong, I think within the report, that's the only mention of the castle walls within the next financial year. It's fitting those eye bolts. I may have missed it within the 8.5 million document that you sent to me, but have we got any plans or capital plans to carry out work to the castle walls? Are these programmed into this yet? I'm assuming there are somewhere because you're fitting safety devices to the wall, but is this included within the data provided? And if it isn't, can it be, please?
That isn't specific. The castle's not specifically included in here. There is a separate paper going through scrutiny with regards to the requirements for the castle. They've been taken out of this so that we can focus on delivering this programme. We need to do the fall arrest system works because that's for general day-to-day maintenance. For example, landscaping, we were unable to do that to the banks without those safety systems in place.
Just to add to that, to answer the question, Councillor Dyer, at the moment we're pulling together works around what those costs will be around the maintenance of the castle, both inner and outer walls, to bring to a pre-decision scrutiny in the coming months.
I believe reference to costs of maintaining the castle may have been mentioned last week at Children's and Culture Scrutiny Committee. Where will that report go to? Will it come to this scrutiny committee who's responsible for scrutinising property, or will it go elsewhere?
It'll be a discussion to have with the portfolio holders around where that best sits from a culture perspective or a growth perspective.
Okay, so at the moment we're being we're able to look at the safety devices to maintain the wall, but we're not trusted yet to maybe scrutinise the actual work involved in maintaining the castle. This is the points I'm making about the scrutiny system. It's just doesn't quite work in my opinion. I think that may be it for now. And just in respect, within the report and within the document as well, there's several mentions of windmills, costs associated with maintaining various windmills, and obviously I can't comment on the figures involved whilst we're in open session. Is there any update on the council's windmill strategy? Because the costs clearly are fast approaching to the maintenance of these, and they're quite significant costs as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're currently out working with the number of trusts associated with each of the windmills. We've done some recent comms to go out to the public to show their interest in being able to the options going forward. We've developed a business case for each of those trusts who we are engaged with, which has been across all 4 of the council's windmills. And in January, we'll be working with them around the proposals that they've made, so that early spring next year, we should have a position on the future of the windmills going forward. So that has been going on now for since September. Different groups are at different stages in, I suppose, their experience of dealing with them, the maturity, the options going forward, and then the intention is to bring that forward for a decision, and will be, as per your previous question, whether or not that's a culture or a growth scrutiny position will be something that would be decided upon at that point. So certainly hoping to have that in a position to be able to present early spring.
Thank you for that. Thank you for preempting the question I was just about to ask you. And then finally from me, Chairman, you'll be pleased to know, within the report you make reference to the Capital R&M programme and it being reviewed monthly by corporate property, FM officers, capital delivery project managers, Vinci facilities and representatives along with the portfolio holder for corporate property, depending on what month it is, whoever that one is. My request is, can this report or a version of this report come through this committee? I mean, I can request it, make an FOI request on a monthly basis and see what you'll send to me. But I think it'd be helpful for committee to have at least a quarterly update on the ongoing property scheme so we know where we are. I appreciate maybe not all that information you can put into the public domain or share with us lowly backbench members, but I think a quarterly report would be appreciated on that and what goes through that briefing.
Yeah, there's absolutely no issue with that, where we maintain it and routinely update it, so happy to schedule that in to come in on that quarterly routine basis, not a problem.
Thank you. Do we have any more questions? Councillor East.
Thank you, Chair, and thanks, Marie, for the report. Just for my information, really, I'm quite fascinated why fire doors are such a big issue. Are they subject to constant replacement due to regulations, or, we seem to have a very large budget for fire doors?
So fire doors require a set of inspections, basically, for us to meet our obligations under the regulatory reform order. Because we inspect them so much and because they're used quite frequently in some areas, they are subject to wear and tear. So there is a specific standard we have to maintain to, hence the reason why we require a budget for them. They are an essential piece of the building for keeping them safe.
Thank you.
Councillor Woodruff.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the report. Just a supplemental question on 2.2. I appreciate that we've got niche sectors and some of the works that's required, but I just wondered if we're having some information on the contractors outside of Lincolnshire. Could we have the reasons that we use contractors outside of Lincolnshire? Again, I appreciate there might be just a specialist field, so it's what's available, but if we could just have that information as well, please, that would be very handy. Thank you.
Yeah, that's no problem. We'll arrange that. Thank you.
If there's no more questions, then I'll ask if there's any questions that are exempt that anybody wants to ask, and we can go into exempt mode, or no? Okay, so I will move the proposal from the report. Do we have any dissent?
Chairman, could I ask that the two requests that Lindsay, Councillor Corey and I made in respect to items coming to committee is also noted? Is that okay?
Yeah, Thank you. Okay, I move that the committee supports the recommendations to the executive, and I ask that our comments captured by the scrutiny officer be shared with the executive for its consideration ahead of its decision. Need a seconder? Councillor Hastings? Is there any dissent? Oh, we have to do a full vote. Do we have hands up, please, if you want to vote? Unanimous, almost? No, almost unanimous. Yeah. Yeah. On to item 6, Business Lincolnshire Annual Performance and Future Business Support Landscape. This scrutiny report can be found on pages 43 to 54 of the agenda pack. This report invites the committee to review and comment on the Business Lincolnshire Growth Hub's annual performance and future business support landscape. As per our required input, we are asked to comment on current Growth Hub progress and help shape future services, champion and promote the Growth Hub and Business Lincolnshire newsletter to business contacts, and note and comment on the potential funding gap from the 1st of April 2026. The report will be presented by Angela Driver, Enterprise Growth Manager. Samantha Harrison, Head of Economic Development, is also present for the debate. Over to you, Angela.
Thank you, and good morning, everybody. It's great to have the opportunity to come and update the committee. It was July 2024 last time we came, so there's been a number of progressions since then. Our Growth Hub continues to provide a vital role to support SMEs across Greater Lincolnshire. As an update to the figures in the report, we've now assisted almost 1,300 businesses with one-to-one advisory support, and that equates to nearly 5,000 hours of advice, an average of just under 4 hours per business. As we approach the final quarter, we're starting to collect more detailed results, including new businesses created, adoption of new technologies and job creation, as well as GVA figures. So we'll be able to see updates on those figures that are in the report over the coming quarter. Councillor Bridgewood's already mentioned our manufacturing conference. This is one of our flagship conferences that we host every other year. This was held on the 28th of November in Boston, and we brought together over 100 manufacturers. Part of the day was a panel where 5 of the businesses that have been supported through the Growth Hub talked about the support that they'd received. One of them, a company called Mowbray Foam, who are based in Grantham, I think provides a typical kind of case study of the type of the support that we're providing. So this is a family-owned manufacturing business. The son of the family took over the business 2 years ago. They had no manufacturing experience. The business was needed kind of investment. It needed to innovate. It needed to digitise. So we started, one of our advisors started to support the business back in February 2024. Since then, they've had specialist manufacturing support, they've accessed grant funding and digitised many of their operations, and it just puts them in a much more competitive situation. And I think the Growth Hub Advisor is kind of the thread that runs throughout all of the support that they've been provided with. They're providing that kind of account management, making the business aware of new support offers as they come along. So it's a really great success story to see. Looking ahead at other events that we've got planned, I know the committee has talked in the past about more activity around procurement, and we've worked with colleagues in the commercial team and with Team Lincolnshire to develop 3 procurement-focused events in February. There's one kind of a general drop-in session that we're going to host in Boston. There's one that's going to be more around digital and IT procurements that will be with a number of digital businesses that we are in contact with through the Mosaic Digital Hub. And there'll be an online event that'll be focused on construction procurements, and that will be later on in February. We're also going to invite 330 of the high growth businesses that have been through our programme to a conference, and that will be held in March next year. Section 2 of the report talks about routes to market and our website. You'll see from the report that our communication strategy is multi-channel. We get really good engagement. I think businesses enjoy the quality of the information that we're putting out through our channels. And we get particularly good engagement through the website, through the newsletter and through our LinkedIn social media channel. We want to make it easier for other organisations to share information and advice through a stakeholder toolkit that we want to put in place next year. The report also highlights a new Business Lincoln website that went live in the summer. And we've really seen huge engagement gains through that new website, so it's really great to see. The report talked about a doubling of website users in October. I'm pleased to say that has continued in November, and 9,000 unique users used the site in November, so really impressive figures as a result of that. The website has an AI growth bot built in, and we are just working with the developers now to gather some intelligence from that growth bot. It's learning all the time. It's learning about what questions it's being asked and the answers and the information on the website. So as time goes by, that AI growth bot will only improve. Customer satisfaction remains high. As I've said in the report, the main challenge really that customers highlight is access to grant funding, of which there's a scarcity across the nationally, it's not just locally. And then the final part of the report talks about the future. So we are going through a change again in the funding landscape. This seems to be a common theme over the last 3 or 4 years. So our current funding, most of our funding comes through the UK Shared Prosperity Fund. That ends in March 2026. And obviously we are making plans to ensure that we have continuity of service post-March next year. Obviously, without a successor to UK SPF, we've been looking at how we might flex our service so that we can respond to the amount of funding that might be available to us. So we've developed a tiered model, which is talked about in the report. Since writing the report, the government have announced local growth funding to replace UK SPF. So we are in conversation with our combined authority colleagues about what that funding looks like, how to access it, etc. But we're prepared, we're planning as a team to make sure that we've got schemes in place to make sure that we've got continued service from April next year. Thank you. Any questions?
Thank you, Angela. Are there any questions, Councillor Dyer?
Thank you very much, Chair. I think the work's fantastic that you do, and it's you speak to any business that's worked or had the advice, it's appreciated, and it's reflected within the feedback that you provided in the report, so that's fantastic. What I wanted to focus on, Chairman, was just item 4, which is just the future planning for you and the team. You've mentioned it within your report just then towards the end. So currently you're funded by the UK SPF funding, and that's at the moment that's something that's run through the district councils, isn't it? As far as I'm aware, that's granted to LCC.
It's at both levels. So there's some granted to LCC and some granted to the districts. There's two. Everybody gets a share.
Could you provide, please, a breakdown of how you get your funding? Is that something, if you can do it now, that's great, but if not, if you could provide that in writing to committee afterwards. Because I know some districts were more generous with the funding than others, if I remember rightly. So I'd just be interested to know where all the funding comes from for your team. But then that brings me on to what is the total cost to run the Growth Hub? So do we have a figure? And I appreciate you could spend more if you wanted to, and you can flex that. But ideally, in an ideal world, how much would you need to run an effective Growth Hub for the businesses that require it in Lincolnshire? And then just coming on to the new funding models, and you've mentioned that there. Will that funding, you mentioned it was via the combined authority, will that be something that the government give directly to the mayor herself, or will it come via the districts as part of the UK SPF did? Could you confirm that? And if it is via the mayor or the districts, could you provide any comment on how those discussions are going, if the mayoral combined authority are willing to continue to fund this through LCC, or does the mayor want to start running her own growth hub within the combined authority? I do have some more, but I think if I could just wait for context from Angela, if that's okay, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Dyer. In terms of the UK Share Prosperity Funds, there was a change in 25-26. So prior to 25-26, all of the UK SPF funding was allocated at the district level, and the county didn't get any. For 25-26, there was a change, and there was an direct allocation to the county, which is majority of that is funding the Growth Hub support. In terms of how much does it cost to deliver a Growth Hub, well, this year we have around about 1.5 million, but in previous years some years we've had less than that, and some years we've had more than that. So that's why we have a kind of flexible delivery model, and we deliver as much as we can with the funding that's available. The extra funding this year has allowed us to have 2 small grant schemes, and we've not had any grant schemes for the last couple of years run directly through the Growth Hub. So there's 2 very small grants, £1,000 for general businesses and £500 for start-up businesses. But it does make a big difference to those businesses, even though it's a small amount. So you can very much flex the delivery depending on the funding available. In terms of the local growth fund, it's very early days. It was only announced at the budget, and I don't think the combined authority colleagues had any information about what that fund looks like. It's expected to come in February, the guidance for that funding. So as is often the case, funding is announced and the guidance follows some time later, and this happened with UK Share Prosperity Fund as well. So in the interim, we will continue with our plans. We're procuring our kind of tier 1 level service for startup and generalist advice. That will be in place from the 1st of April, and then we'll look at additional kind of more specialist advice on top of that, depending on the funds available.
Thank you for that, Angela, appreciate that. Just to remind me, does the Growth Hub, and it may be in the report, it's just a question that's come to my mind, do you service just LCC's geographic area, or do you also service Greater Lincolnshire plus Rutland, or is it not plus Rutland? Just Greater Lincolnshire, is that correct?
Just Greater Lincolnshire for 25-26, for the 1st of April 25, Rutland joined Leicester and Leicestershire.
Right. So just in respect to that then, the funding that you've got is essentially only confirmed to this financial year, and moving forward into the next financial year, at the moment, that is a complete unknown in respect to whether that will be an LCC service, whether it will be a mayoral service. We don't know at this stage.
No, I guess the answer is no. Those conversations are ongoing, but the expectation would be that we have a growth hub. We're mandated by government to provide an advice and signposting service, and some of our funding does come through the government, so we get a grant from DBT. Sorry, you asked about the breakdown of. So there's an LCC core budget that pays for the team that manages the delivery of the growth hub, basically. There's a 3-year settlement award from DBT, which is around about 350k. We haven't actually got the confirmed figures as yet, but we've had verbal confirmation that it'll be a 3-year settlement, and then overlaid on top of that at the moment is the UK Share Prosperity Fund, which will be the local growth fund.
Just on that, you've just mentioned we are mandated by government to have a growth hub. Can you just confirm who we is? Is that Lincolnshire as a whole? Is that Lincolnshire County Council is mandated? I'm just wondering where does that mandate sit? Can you confirm?
Lincolnshire County Council is the accountable body for delivery of the growth hub. So the funding comes into the county council for delivery of that growth hub, which is a Greater Lincolnshire service.
Thank you for that. I appreciate that. I think just in respect to the replacement of the UK SPF, as Justin's whispered over. There's going to be a report in February where that will be confirmed, and we know the future, hopefully, of that funding moving forward. My ask would be, Chairman, if we can squeeze it in, could we have an update come to committee once we actually know the future of the growth hubs? I think we wouldn't be doing our jobs if we were to say, no, we don't want to hear from you again. Fantastic. And potentially the whole service that you provide, from what you've told me, I've interpreted it as a bit of an unknown at the moment. And also, Chairman, I think we should put on record as a committee, if you all agree, the fantastic work that the Growth Hub does, and hopefully LCC can fully support continuing operating it as it currently stands, because I think it'd be a great shame if it were to go up to the Mayoral Combined Authority because of the great work that you're completely doing at the moment. Thank you.
We'll have to look into getting the update in February, but we'll get back to you on that if there's space for it. But Justin.
Sorry, I shouldn't have whispered to Angela. Just to confirm, the government officials have informed authorities that the guidance for local growth funds will be issued in February. So for us to know what's in the guidance, for us to work with others on it, is going to take quite a lot of time. I think one thing that I think is being inferred from this discussion is that the stop-start nature of the funding undermines what is a really good service. And therefore, you might want to ask either Councillor Kelly or Councillor Bridgford or me to write to government to protest at the stop-start nature.
Thank you.
Chairman, yeah, very happy to ask that of you, Justin. Just as a follow-up as well, can I also ask, based on what you've just said there, Justin, if the funding into the new financial year is an unknown, I would personally like LCC to guarantee the funding, either itself or, well, itself if it isn't forthcoming, until we know what the future service delivery is, so that there isn't a stop-start nature of it. And I think LCC and the administration should look to make sure that there is a service continuing until we know the certain future going into the new financial year. So hopefully that can be noted, Chairman, that some members have requested that LCC fund it if all else fails.
Thank you. Councillor Baxter.
Thank you, Chair, and good morning, and sorry I was late. I've got a volley of questions, if I can find them on this machine. First of all, it's about the relationship with the districts. Are we... I noticed that the pie chart shows that there's more interaction with South Kesteven and City of Lincoln, and less with... The least is with the north, the frozen north, and then there's the SELCP in the east. Is that because they're doing their own thing? And if they're doing their own thing, then how much overlap is there between the provision and also the funding? I'm pretty sure some money comes from South Kesteven towards the kind of central pool. So how is it working with the districts? And especially in light of the fact that the county council will be abolished in a couple of years, are our services based on localities, will it be possible to disaggregate into whichever new unitary structure comes forward?
Thank you, Councillor Baxter. In terms of the district councils, we have a really good working relationship with all the district councils. There is provision in North and North East Lincolnshire and South East Lincolnshire Partnership, so that's East Lindsey, Boston and South Holland, in terms of generalist advisors and some start-up support. So we've worked with them quite closely to understand what they're offering and to ensure there isn't an overlap with what the Growth Hub's offering. So the Growth Hub offers generalist advisors, start-up advisors in those districts that don't have those locally. And if we get an inquiry for those districts that do have those advisors locally, we'll do a referral through to that district, a warm handover through to that advisor that covers that area. What the Growth Hub provides right across the whole area is specialist support. So we have a team of specialist advisors, we have a number of specialist programs, we deliver a workshop program, we've obviously got all of the content on the website, and we will promote anything that's going on locally at the district council level as well. So it's very much about not duplicating what...
Sorry, may I also just add, the district councils, they are operating their business support advisors due to receiving the UK Shared Prosperity Fund. So once that funding has stopped in March, they have then said to us they want to join the wider and the best practice, the lessons learned, the things that they've piloted within their areas that have been great for the UK Shared Prosperity Fund. We will then build them into the Growth Hub model. So the overlap is because of the nuances of the funding agreement and how it's been delivered to the districts, but also that there's been some really good innovative work that the districts have done that would help shape and be great to cascade across Greater Lincolnshire as a whole. But we do, as Angela said, it's working hand in glove. They come under the banner, we joint brand, and we work together. But there is disparity at the moment, as you've noticed.
Thank you. I don't know if you're the right people to ask about the disaggregation, but I can leave that if you like. I didn't know the difference between the specialist advisor on digital/marketing and the specialist advisor on digital sector growth. What's the difference between digital/marketing and digital sector growth?
So digital/marketing is for any business who needs support with digitalisation or digital marketing. So a hairdresser, a retail shop, a visitor economy business. So it's for any sector. So that support will be delivered across a business from any sector. Whereas the digital sector support is about championing our local digital sector businesses and understanding what their needs are specifically and working with those to help grow that sector.
Okay, thanks. I think I get it. In my head, I'm simplifying it to digital equals email and website. And so digital marketing is how to get a website, and digital sector growth is offering people websites. Is that broadly it? I know there's far more to it, but you're not shaking your head at me.
I think the digital sector growth is more about the kind of, you know, those high-tech businesses. So if you think about agri-tech, if you think about the defence sector, and there's quite a lot of exciting stuff going on in that kind of digital tech sector. And they tend to be growing very rapidly. They've got kind of specialist needs. So we've got an expert in that sector who can help them specifically with their growth.
Okay, thanks. So if I need AI, I'd go to the digital sector growth person. If I need AI on farm machinery, I'd go to the agri-horti sector person. It's complicated. I realise there'll be some overlap. But another question about overlap is about the mayoral authority. The mayor has a business and infrastructure board. Is there overlap between what the mayor is doing and what you as Business Lincolnshire are doing? And for example, did you to what extent were you involved in the Great Exhibition, and has there been any spin-off benefit or spin-off inquiries from the Great Exhibition?
We were involved in the Great Exhibition in terms of having a stand at the exhibition and obviously talking about Business Lincolnshire to the delegates that came along to that event. The Greater Lincolnshire County Authority colleagues are not delivering business support. I think a lot of what the focus is on, particularly around the Great Exhibition and some of the work that's being done at the moment, is really about inward investment, which is not an area that Business Lincolnshire would get involved in.
Thank you. I'm nearly there. So, due to the recent failure of the free market in that Destination Lincolnshire went pop, has that had any knock-on effect for what you do, and are you fearful for tourism in Lincolnshire, given that that's, I can't remember what the name of it, visitor economy body can't remember. There's an acronym, isn't there? Are you worried about tourism?
So if I could take that one, thank you. So in terms of our support, so in Business Lincolnshire has a visitor economy element to it. We have a visitor economy advisor and we have a visitor economy programme. That also links back in through another shop window, which is through Visit Lincolnshire. So with the demise of the community interest company, Destination Lincolnshire, we have always had Visit Lincolnshire for many years. It has just given us a greater prominence. So we have also taken on the role of the working with Visit England and taken on the local visitor economy partnership LVEP status. So we are working with government looking at a reduced LVEP light model, but we're dedicated to supporting the sector. The sector is in need of support. They are struggling. They've had challenging year upon year upon year. So we have got sort of a twin track programme, the work that Angela's team do through the Growth Hub, but then the work that our visitor economy team do through the website, through campaigns and marketing, through upskilling the sector as a whole.
Thank you very much for all your answers. I was going to ask about AI bots, but I'll only embarrass myself, so I'll leave it to someone else.
Thank you. Councillor Corey.
Thank you, Chairman. I think this one's for Justin. You talked about guidance for the continuance of the Growth Hub, and we're expecting that guidance in February, and we're waiting with bated breath. What is your understanding from your experience of working with them who hand down this guidance? How much room do you think there'll be for a local interpretation, bearing in mind it is guidance, not instructions, inverted commas? So how much local room will we have to interpret that guidance to ensure that our services and support remain relevant and responsive to local needs and conditions? Because central government seems to think that everybody works on an urban model, and we have pockets of urbanisation, but we have huge. Most of Lincolnshire is rural and sparsely populated. So, what do you think we'll be able to do with that guidance to make sure that our businesses get what they need from us?
Yeah, thank you. So, sorry, I've slightly misled. The guidance we're expecting in February relates to something called the Local Growth Fund, which is some grant support to regions in the North and Midlands that the Chancellor announced at the budget. And part of that funding could be used on business support, which is why we see it as an opportunity for the Growth Hub. Now, the way that I imagine this is going to happen, and today is 33 years that I've been running grant programmes in Lincolnshire, so I was expecting a cake. Oh, but my experience would indicate that what we need to do, we collectively, is to produce a plan of how we would spend the money. Now, the government will expect that plan to be written by the Greater Lincolnshire Combined County Authority, very clearly by the CCA. And therefore, our route to inform that will be through Councillors Matthews and Sheard, who sit on the Business and Infrastructure Group of the Combined County Authority. So what we as a team will be doing is working on what the County Council would recommend is included within that document. And it may be that we need to route some of that thinking through here, but until I see the guidance, I can't really say. I suspect there will be a sort of 70-30 rule. 70% will be government wanting to see a certain amount of direction in terms of priority sectors that they have in the National Industrial Strategy, etc., and 30% will be very much around local conditions. And in terms of local conditions, clearly the stop-start nature of funding, the cost of rurality, and the relationships that we need to have with accountants and solicitors and so on will be three of the things that I would expect us to be describing in relation to the Growth Hub.
Thank you. Are there any more questions? No. Okay, moving on to the proposal. I move that the committee has reviewed and is satisfied with the Growth Hub progress, that assurances were received regarding the potential funding gap, and that we continue to show support to the hub. Can I see a raise of hands in agreement? It's unanimous. Thank you very much. On to, do we want a comfort break? No. Okay, on to item 7. Service level performance reporting against the performance framework 2025 to 2026 as at Q2. This scrutiny report can be found on pages 55 to 62 of the agenda pack. This report enables the committee to consider and comment on the 2025-26 quarters 1 and 2 service level performance reporting against the performance framework as at Q2. The report will be presented by Samantha Harrison, Head of Economic Development. Over to you, Samantha.
Thank you, Chairman. Everybody, this is the first time that this report has been presented to this committee, so we're reporting on 2 quarters together. What I do want to be clear on is that we have 3 indicators that we report on during the year. So there's the number of businesses supported, the number of qualifications delivered, and the amount of external funding secured to deliver economic development activity. So the first target, I'm pleased to say that we are on track. We've exceeded our milestone target, and we are on track to hit our annual target of 2,500 businesses. You've heard today already from Angela the success of the Growth Hub, and this is part of the activity that has formed us supporting the high level number of businesses we've had. But there's also a range of other activities that link into that. So there's the work that we've done with the Growth Hub, there's the work that we do with our inward investment team, with the business community, we've got our Made Smarter digital programme, the work that the UK Food Valley team do, and the work that our Careers Hub team and the Skills Bootcamp team do. So all in all, we work closely together to provide that robust support for helping businesses to develop and grow. The second target that we report on is the number of qualifications achieved by adults. So this one, we are behind target at the current milestone, but I am still confident that we will reach the target by the end of the year. So the challenge that we have in terms of the target is we are reporting up until September. A lot of our provision doesn't finish their enrolment activity until October. So it is a time lag challenge that we have here. But also this year we've had more qualification funding than we've had previously. So we have been going through procurement rounds. So that we've been contracting with new providers, and then we've been getting those new providers ready to start delivery. So there is a time lag issue there. And then the final measure that we report on is the level of external funding achieved. We are behind target. The actual to date is 3.3 million. Our target was 5.3 million. When we've looked at the reasoning behind it, it's mainly due to the changes in government. So there has been a time lag in us receiving our income. So we are delivering government programmes. We have contracts in place with government and offer letters. It's just that our payments haven't been paid in time due to various restructuring of government departments. So I fully envisage us meeting the 15 million target by the end of the year. It's just, once again, a kind of a delay due to process. Thank you. Thank you. Councillor Corey.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Samantha, for your report. Obviously, I'm going to ask a question on the qualifications achieved by adults. You partially answered my question, so well done. But I'm going to ask another one. can we have a short report, can be via email to the whole committee on how you hit those targets by the end of the year? I mean, it doesn't have to be a full report like this. I don't know if that's allowable, but just to let us know how you did against expectations, so that you did actually hit those targets because of the mitigating factors. That would be really helpful if possible. Thank you.
Sorry, just to clarify, so that'll be at the end of the year you want us to show? Yeah, no problem at all. So we have got contracts in place. We do have robust delivery providers, so I'm confident that we'll hit those as well. Yeah, happy to. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Dyer.
Thank you, Chairman. See, in the last council, I only really sat properly on highways scrutiny for the first couple of years. And when we had the performance data, you had performance presented to you on virtually everything going. And a lot of that is because of the contracts in place. So that data is being collected and reported. When I read this report last week, I was shocked, quite frankly, at how poor the performance data is coming to this committee. It's 3 areas. It's quite frankly, I mean, it's fantastic what you've presented, Samantha, but it's in terms of our role to scrutinise this area of the council's delivery, it's not good enough. It's crazily not good enough, to be honest with you, Chairman. So just looking at it, there's nothing on property here. There's nothing on procurement. There's nothing on commercial. And I know Councillor Kelly's taken an interest in Veterans Affairs, quite rightly as well. I don't know how we'd monitor his performance on that, but there's nothing on Veterans Affairs either. So I did exchange emails with Chiara, and I think you did email Nigel. I didn't get a reply from Nigel. I just got a thumbs up to the email, so I don't know what that means. But I did request perhaps looking at forming a informal member working group, Chairman, to meet privately, so that we can look at agreeing what performance data actually comes to this committee. Because at the moment, the 3 measures just aren't good enough for us to monitor performance. We've got the new corporate plan coming in the new year. So I think it'd be a good time to refresh what data we actually review as a committee. I appreciate, I think, Andrew, you did send a helpful reply, if you don't mind me saying, in respect to your service area, and I appreciate why there might not be some information reported here. I don't think I'm not asking to be difficult or ask officers to provide data that isn't already available or there's significant costs involved. But for instance, just within the Justin's service area, we've discussed the economic development centres at the last meeting, and I think the meeting before that as well. Yet coming to this committee for performance data, we're not aware of tenant rates, we're not aware of tenant satisfaction. All of that information is being held by the council. I think we should be scrutinising the delivery in that service area as well. I could talk all day, you don't want me to. So can I formally request, Chairman, please, that we form, it's set out within the council constitution, I've briefed Chiara, that we form a member working group to meet twice in January to discuss what performance measures come to this committee. I think it'd be beneficial if we were to meet once with that side of the scrutiny area and then that side of the scrutiny area as well. I'm happy for officers, if the committee were to agree to it, to present what they can feasibly report into committee, and we just have a discussion. So moving forward after that, Chairman, we can actually have data that allows us to do our jobs, because at the moment this isn't good enough. Thank you. So I formally move, and I think Lindsay might second it.
I'm happy to second that, Chairman. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Wasn't there a tenant satisfaction survey? Just to make a correction, you said there's no information on tenants. I think we had something come to committee earlier, the tenant satisfaction survey. Is that correct?
Yeah, you're right, Chairman, but that's reported in a report that might come annually. What I'm asking is that that's included within the performance metrics that come quarterly. I'll assume that will come to committee. So it might come ad hoc. For instance, the Business Lincolnshire, that's come today, but as Angela said at the start of her report, you haven't come to this committee or a version of since what, June 2024? So these will eventually get reported to committee, Chairman, but they're not being reported regularly. If something went wrong within the Growth Hub, I'm sorry for using you as an example, they haven't come to the committee in a year and a half almost. So I think we need to have a serious conversation about what performance metrics come to this committee. I mean, I've not even started on property and everything within that I'm sure we're very interested in seeing reported through committee.
Okay, yeah, thank you for clarifying. Chiara, did you?
Yes, thank you very much indeed. Yes, indeed, we have exchanged some emails in relation to this request that has been made. We have been made aware of it previously. At this point, we are aware that officers are working away in terms of building the new council plan, and they're working on the metrics that they will be reporting for each of the scrutiny committees across the council. So at the moment, so as not to duplicate any efforts that are already being made by officers, we have forwarded this request to Nigel West, who is our statutory scrutiny officer as well as head of democratic services, for further consideration, and we will come back to you with an official response if that is okay. Thank you.
Chairman, thank you for that, Chiara. I think my problem with that is, and it was within your email that you sent to me, Andrew, it's all well and good officers and executive councillors telling us what we're going to be scrutinising them on. It's the scrutinised telling us what we're going to scrutinise them on. I don't think that's right, and I thank you for your response, Chiara, but I don't think that's good enough because I haven't heard back from Nigel since I sent the email, Thursday last week, other than a thumbs up, so I don't think that's good enough. So I still formally request that a member working group set up, Chairman. Whether the committee wants to vote against it or not, that's in your gift.
Thank you. And I do believe as well that portfolio holders have some influence on that as well. So it isn't just officers in charge of the scrutiny.
Chairman, you're correct. But we're here to scrutinise the officers and they're guided by the executive members. So we're scrutinising both the executive member and the officers. So my point still stands there, Chairman. It might be just a technical point.
Yeah, just to jump in on that, Chairman, Scrutiny's here as a critical friend. All our colleagues will remember from their scrutiny training just a few months ago that it's up to the scrutiny committee to decide what they want to scrutinise. It's not up to those whose homework we're marking to tell us what they want us to look at. So with respect, if we say we want to look at these, unless there's a constitutional reason why we can't, then we really expect to be able to scrutinise the data that we've requested.
Okay, thank you.
Is there any particular reason why this data isn't put into these papers? Because some of the papers are quite detailed, but like was mentioned, the things which we need to scrutinise, a lot of it, the information isn't actually in the papers, especially the financial side of it. So is there a reason why?
I think on this occasion, the information from a procurement, commercial and property isn't in this paper because it was taken forward from previous administration, what was in the scrutiny committees then. And of course we had different scrutiny committees. So the property and a commercial side would have been formed under an update under OSMB. So the arrangements for monitoring the performance were carried out differently. So they've been rolled forward into this year whilst we get it up to speed around the future reporting. The intention in early 2026 excuse me, will be to carry out that review again then. So through the council plan, what are the KPIs and the monitoring that will go into each scrutiny committee? They're based on what's out there nationally, what we report regionally, what we have at the moment, also what's available to officers to report on. So we have a balance around ensuring that information that's provided is available and that we're not creating additional work to create new information. And that's brought together and signed off as what does so from a property perspective, what does property look like through these measures? And that might be through some of our work with the Vinci contract, making sure we're doing timely repairs. That's come up in the discussion so far. Our ability to meet legislative changes might be linked to progress against certain activities that are going on that we've talked about, windmills, the castle, so on and so forth. So we'd normally pull that together. The exec director would approve that and through agreement with the portfolio holder, and then they'd normally be presented to scrutiny committee on a routine basis. Then often where there might be elements whereby there are specific matters for discussion, so we talked about a satisfaction survey earlier, that they normally will often form a report. So that is a normal practice of how things would be brought to a scrutiny committee to review. And during the year, there might be questions that come up in different committees which can influence that, but it's that's how we've got to this position we are here today. So whilst there are measures that we'll look to put in from a property perspective, they're not in there now because they weren't reported to a previous scrutiny committee. So it's not that they won't be going forward, it's that's the work that will start in early 2026.
Councillor Condell.
Thank you. I don't disagree with what Councillor Dyer is saying. However, I do on the timing. I believe that the growth KPIs are currently being developed, and they've got to look at a lot of factors before they put them forward. So we're looking at social factors, we're looking at how we work with Memorial, combined setup, and we're looking at the government funding and various bits and pieces now. I think it is too early for us to jump in and say we want this without getting what we're looking at for future KPIs from the direction.
Jeremy, if I may, I think it's a fair point from Councillor Condell. I suppose my argument back with that would be to that is that it's always a moving piece, isn't it? And there never is a right time to say, set in stone, this is what we're going to scrutinise. And as a member of a performance committee, you can request information to come through when this report comes, and you can amend that. My ask purely is, because it's so poor where we currently are, all it basically is asking for a couple of Teams meetings. That's all I'm asking for officers to privately meet with us to say, this is what we want to put to you as a committee. Are you happy? And then we can just say yes or no, or why haven't you got this? And have a discussion in private as a committee so that we can just move forward. In respect to timing, I haven't mentioned the timing here. So if we were to approve this today, we can have these informal meetings in March. You know, that'd be fine. I just think we need to have a discussion in private because from what Andrew's just provided, something's going to come forward. I think we need to have a conversation about it. But in respect to growth, the lack of information there, particularly on the workspaces, has shocked me. And I think we need to, as a committee, ask that more information is provided here for us to scrutinise.
Councillor Bowles.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I do agree with Councillor Dyer. The measures that we're looking at today just aren't sufficient for the service area, and when you're looking at the budgets and what actually falls under this committee's remit, to just have those 3 points is nowhere near good enough. You know, I can only refer to the progress and delivery reports I receive as a district councillor. They're far more in-depth, far more wide-reaching. So I do support what Councillor Dye said. I do also take what Councillor Condell said, and maybe a suggestion, and again, referring back to what we do at a district council, we have a member working group who every year look at those progress and delivery points, because as Councillor Condell says, they potentially consistently move and change. So every year we refresh our what we're scrutinising. Is it fit for purpose? Do we need to no longer look at that because it's not really relevant? Something new's come in, we need to look at that. So maybe moving forward, Councillor Dye's informal group needs to become a more formal working group that looks at the scrutiny structure year on year. So that's my point on that part of it. Just a question on the actual paper in front of us, and I think, apologies Chair, I've raised this several times before in the previous guise of the committee, on the paper regarding the business support. It gives us all the data about type of business, size of business, which is great. I have no idea where those businesses are located. Is it, you know, is Boston, for example, getting far more of that support than Gainsborough? I have a little bit of an idea because the paper before gives me that data by district, but the scrutiny paper doesn't give me that data by district. So like I say, I've requested it several times before. If that district data can be included, it will be far more beneficial so we know who is benefiting and where the investment is actually going. Thank you.
Thank you. If officers want to answer that last question, we'll just do it in a minute because I want to kind of stay on this topic that Councillor Dyer has raised. Is there any more questions regarding the Councillor Condell?
Yeah, just a general question on KPIs. When are we expecting to see them in the new year?
As you can appreciate, growth KPIs are not formulated in isolation. So what we're currently working on is bringing all the information together, make sure it's aligned with the corporate plan and the mayoral activity. So yeah, I would hopefully say that in the new year we have something to bring forward. But we want to make sure that they're appropriate and measurable. Otherwise, they're no good to you anyway.
Thank you. Councillor Baxter.
Thank you for letting me come in on this. Councillor Dyer's got a very selective memory, because I sat on this body used to be called Environment and Economy Committee, and you were some kind of support to the portfolio holder, and you certainly were in attendance last July when we talked about these measures and previous. I don't remember a lot of fuss about it at the time, but obviously we've all got different perspectives now. We used to at the equivalent committee discuss environment measures, which is basically recycling, and flooding, which was very excitable, and these also were on the end. So I guess within that committee structure there wasn't the time, but now that we've got a separate growth committee, then perhaps we've got more time to dig into these things. I agree that if I were choosing three, these are not necessarily the three that I would choose, and I'd probably prefer more, but partly because although these are indicators with targets, I'm not sure that we can actually, they're not necessarily things we can really affect, particularly the external funding. So we've got an amount of external funding attracted to Lincolnshire. Is that different to inward investment? External funding and inward investment? Because if I read that we're not getting enough, or we're not meeting our target on external funding, can I blame the mayor for that? Because that's something that we've been told earlier this meeting that is something that she wants to do. But also, I wouldn't blame officers here or the mayor particularly, because a lot of it is going to be in the hands of central government. And if Rachel Reeves finds a pocket of money that she can dole out across the country, or she doesn't, I'm not sure that's within our power. I mean, we can influence it, but there are many other factors at play. Similarly, with the number of business inquiries, I have a problem with numbers of businesses supported, because if someone phones us up and we say, great that you phoned us up, but phone South East Lincolnshire Partnership as well, then are we supporting that business by giving them another phone number, or does it mean something deeper? And also, if there's a kind of general economic upturn across the country, across Lincolnshire, to what extent is that down to our officers? I mean, it may be that they're trying to sort of rescue, or it may be that they're trying to encourage, but I'm not sure that these measures are deep enough into what our officers are actually able to do. Maybe the property measures would be more attributable to what we're actually doing. So that's, yeah. Having two workshops early in the new year, I think would be, in terms of time and such like, it might be difficult. I hope there'd be another way to input into that discussion other than attending the Teams meeting. And also I'd like to see some, if we do have those meetings, some kind of menu of choices. So maybe officers could come up with 20 and we could choose the best 5 or something similar. I wouldn't want it to be everyone putting their hand up and having their own crazy ideas, because that would get us nowhere.
Thank you. Councillor Condell.
Just following up, I think we should wait for the KPIs to come through. I don't have an issue with reviewing them and setting something up afterwards, but I think we should wait for the KPIs. On that, I don't have anything else to say. However, I do have a couple of questions on the paper itself. Can I go ahead with those?
We'll just wait a minute until we finish this debate, if there's Councillor Corey.
Thank you. There is an air of passivity about this. Scrutiny is a proactive process. You know, we're not here to sit and wait to be fed. We're here to be on the front foot and to request data. Well, they're just going to wait for someone to tell us and say, here, have a look at this. You know, we're here as representatives of our communities and on our businesses. We're not asking for something extraordinary, Chairman. We're just asking for something which is within the Constitution and expected of us as councillors, as members of the Scrutiny Committee, to say these are the things we want to look at this time within the Constitution, bearing in mind what other people have said about when figures and data become available. If we want it, unless there's a damn good reason why we can't have it, we should be able to scrutinise it in public.
Thank you. If there's no more questions on this part of this item, we will take it to a vote on the proposal that Councillor Dyer has requested the committee establishes a working group to agree that performance data should be fed into the committee. Please raise your hands if you agree. That's 4 votes in agreement. Please raise your hands if you disagree. It's a split decision on disagree. Is there any abstentions? Okay. The proposal does not pass. Thank you for your debate and comments. I still do think that a lot of the discussion has been beneficial and should absolutely be passed into the New Year meetings about the KPIs when they come out as well. But on to the rest of the paper, the item. Are there any more questions? I think Councillor Bowles asked a question earlier if an officer wanted to answer that one.
Certainly. So we can, in the next reporting, we can provide the districts where the businesses have been supported. Very happy to. And I guess in terms of businesses supported, we're not counting telephone inquiries or anything like that. It is a robust support mechanism over 3 hours of direct support to a business. So it's not just a quick referral mechanism. Just to clarify as well, in terms of external funding, it's how much funding that we bid for to lever the County Council's budget. So it's more funding that we're bringing into Lincolnshire to provide a greater service to the community and the businesses, rather than just funding we'd already get. We've had to put a lot of time and effort in to secure that external funding. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Condon, you had a couple of questions?
Yes. It's on the quarterly performance for the qualifications. I know you have said that it's up to the end of September, so I'm assuming you're expecting that number of 500 and whatever it is to go up by the end of October. Okay. Do you think it is going to fill that gap, or has there been anything else that impacting it, like lack of take-up or people dropping out of the courses?
Excuse me. So the targets today, and I have had some previous results coming in for November, and we're looking very good. So we're at 4,800 already. So we're on track. However, I think it is a lot of our new providers are getting to grips with the market, how to promote their services and how to reach new learners. So there is a gap there that we've still got to plug, and we're helping them work through that process. So it's all about us being more robust and helping them with their marketing and comms and getting the messages out to the learners. Thank you.
Sorry, and the other question I have is really on the finance of it. I think you sort of covered some of, or all of, perhaps all of what I was asking. It's 3 1/3 or 3.3 million that we've got, and we were looking for 5.3. Is that purely because we haven't reached out to different areas to get this funding, or is it just not available?
No, so we have got the contracts that we're delivering. We've put the claims into government to receive the money. They just haven't, their systems and processes with all the government sort of, changes within departments, they haven't pressed the button to pay us.
So, again, it's a question of timing more than anything else.
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Baxter, I've got your name down from earlier. You don't want to... Okay, Councillor Dyer.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you for the report. Just appreciate what just happened in respect to the vote, but just to put on record, I'd be really keen in respect to the growth area to see reported to this committee in your discussions that you're having in the new year, performance data specifically on economic development buildings. So the income, tenant percentages, rates per centre, and also Councillor Kelly at the last meeting set his own ambition to make them wash their faces, or whatever term he used. I would like a performance measure on that being reported as well through to committee. I don't quite remember if Councillor Kelly is responsible for development management. I know that comes under your area, Justin. Is that Dan? Okay, that's not Councillor Kelly. That's fine. And I'd also be keen to see some performance data on Team Lincolnshire, so members, events held, attendance at events as well. And then finally, we've already, as a committee, I suppose some members of the committee have expressed concern about the lack of performance measures, Andrew, that you've justified. So hopefully moving forward, we can see some more detail there for us to scrutinise that.
Okay, thank you. Are there any more questions? No? Okay, moving the original proposal, I move that the committee has reviewed and is satisfied with the performance reported as at Q2. Can I have a raise of hands in agreement? It's almost unanimous. It's carried, thank you. On to item 8, government budget presentation on implications for Lincolnshire's growth programme. This verbal update presents the implications of His Majesty's Government's budget on the implications for Lincolnshire's growth programme. The committee is invited to consider this verbal update. The report will be presented by Justin Brown, Assistant Director for Growth. Over to you, Justin.
Yeah, Chairman, thank you, and apologies that this is a slide deck and a verbal report, but those of you who are reading the papers on Sunday no doubt saw data from the budget coming, and we're still waiting for some of that data to come out. So this is sort of what we know as of the weekend. And rather than giving you, do you want to move on a slide, Andrew? Rather than giving you a very detailed analysis of macroeconomics and fiscal decisions, which no chance they're not me, what I'll try and do is talk a little bit about the various things which seem most directly related to the growth activity that this Scrutiny Committee looks at. I reached out to Lincolnshire Chamber and to Lincoln Business Improvement Group for a few vox pops of how businesses were feeling immediately after the budget. And in terms of, as we develop the work programme for 2026 and onwards for this Scrutiny Committee, there may be things that I say that you think these would be worth a bit of a deep dive into. So that's the purpose of this. And hopefully it's of use, and it may be that we come back to some of this in January, given that this is a sort of presentation straight off the press. Thank you, Andrew. So first thing, a number of issues around the context for us to be aware of. So we did see a lot of speculation, didn't we? It created a lot of economic uncertainty, and the Office of Budget Responsibility is estimating an increase in growth to 1.5%. Now, 20 or so years ago, I wrote an economic development strategy for the council which said 2.5% growth in Lincolnshire is really low, we're below average, etc. So the national figure being substantially less than that is definitely something to be aware of. In terms of inflation, there's some risk coming up there, and we saw a number of tax increases identified, including, of course, the freezing of some thresholds. As Councillor Bridgewood mentioned earlier, farming community is particularly concerned about some of the impact of those fiscal measures, and we didn't see a lot of softening of that in the budget statement. Next one, please. So things I thought we may just touch on over the next few minutes: the youth guarantee, some of the local growth initiatives, visitor levy, investments in ISAs, and industrial strategy zones. Next one, Tom. So a large announcement in the budget and in subsequent information has been around this youth guarantee. And one of the things I think is really important for you to recognise is that long-term youth unemployment in Lincolnshire is substantially above national levels, and national levels are pretty high anyway. So one of the things that has been announced is a guarantee of a 6-month paid work placement after something like 18 months of alternative support, and some announcements about the full funding of SME apprenticeships, which takes some of the cost out of the equation for small businesses who have chosen to take on an apprentice. Some of the things that I think we may want to go back to as the policies around youth guarantee develop, and we'll probably bring papers around the youth guarantee, are about the geographical focus that we may wish to take, about recognising that the county council does a lot more than simply being involved in employment and training. So I think at the last meeting, Councillor Corey, you were asking about public transport and its relationship to youth unemployment. That's a piece of work that we've logged and that we'll take forward into the future. Councillor Kelly has been particularly keen to explore how we can reduce the risk to businesses of taking people on placements and internships. And I suppose one thing that we're acutely aware of is that in the whole employment and skills space, there's a lot of requests being made of businesses. Will you take this person on? Will you take that person on? Will you attend a careers event, etc., etc.? And they're running their businesses. There are only so many hours in the day. So I think there are some considerations about the youth guarantee that we need to be aware of and think about how we would want it to be seen in the county. Next one, Andrew. So local growth initiatives, I've mentioned a little bit about the local growth fund already. So the figures for Greater Lincolnshire are £52 million for the next 4 years. And the government has given 3 headings there: infrastructure, business and skills. So the Combined County Authority will be developing a growth plan to address some of those points. But what's really important for us, I guess, as a council, is that there's a substantial amount of money there. You know, it's big money. We need to get a pipeline of our own projects in place so that we know what we can ask for, we know what we want to champion. And again, that might be something that you would wish to explore. There was also some retail tax relief and some changes to customs duty, which was very much focused on helping small retailers who were struggling. I guess when we did our work on the High Street scrutiny review, probably 18 months ago now, we had a lot of concern about how we could help those small retailers. But it went back to a point that I think Councillor Condell, you made a few minutes ago. There's only so much that can be done locally when there's a macro position as well. But nonetheless, you might want to explore that whole thing about retail tax relief. Again, as more detail becomes available, we can bring more detail to you, but I wanted to just put it on your agenda for now. Next one, Andrew, please. So a couple of other things that it's worth referencing. You'll have seen that mayors are going to be given the ability to charge a visitor levy on overnight accommodation. And on the one hand, that generates extra money. On the other hand, it creates an extra cost pressure. So we, through the services that we provide to the visitor economy, we talk a lot with tourism businesses. We've got a lot of empirical data, but we've got a lot of anecdotal information as well, which we think it would be useful to feed in. And I recognise Councillor Baxter earlier today asked about how do we feel about the tourism sector. There's a couple of vox pops on the next slide which tell us what the tourism businesses are saying to us. I'm really interested in the second bullet point, which is about how we make sure that some of these new investment finance models, which are going to come over the next year, 2 years, 3 years, are really getting to the type of businesses that we work with within the county. So I was interested in the debate you had about an hour ago about the digital business sector, those businesses who sell technology to other businesses. Often they are financed through a different route to many other businesses, and often it is more of this investment finance. It's not something that as a council we've typically looked at, but I'm interested in just exploring whether we're missing out as an economy, whether there are opportunities. And the other thing that I sort of saw and that jumped out of the page to me from the budget was that industrial strategy zones, as they're now called, they used to be called free ports, they used to be called enterprise zones, they increasingly receive significant funding to enable them to attract extra business into the area. There is a free port, of course, on the south bank of the Humber. It's a shared one between the south bank and the north bank. That's a long way away from some parts of Lincolnshire, and we might want to explore whether we do some work to promote an industrial strategy zone for our area. Next one, Andrew. So, a few vox pops from the business community and via the Chamber of Commerce and the Business Improvement Group. So, not as bad as expected versus increasing minimum wage is another hit for businesses. A bit of support for apprenticeship funding changes. I recognise, by the way, that these are comments from one individual. They are not technical data, but they at least give us a little bit of information. Sorry? No, different individuals. Yeah. Definitely something about price inflation, which is, of course, a risk to everyone in the economy. And quite an important thing in that third bullet point from the bottom, that sense that small business policy is typically around SMEs, which can be up to 250, not micros, which are often under 10. So a number of points which were raised from a debate that the Chamber of Commerce had. Then in terms of the visitor economy, we got a couple of interesting quotes there. Really, really interesting, the second from the bottom there. Visitors waiting to see how much month is left at the end of the money. Very deliberate that people are feeling extremely squeezed, and therefore what can they do in terms of those short notice breaks which typically people have now. And then again that challenge between higher up, our prices being raised versus we're looking at value driven approaches. So very early days, but a number of quotes there which I think were interesting in terms of initial comment from the business community. And my final slide. So yeah, it is very early days. We need a lot more information, and the timing of some of the proposals is 18 months away and so on. So as we see more policy development in some of these, we'll maybe bring some of that back, have some more detailed deep dives, but I would welcome any initial thoughts you've got around the ones that matter most to you. So Youth Guarantee, clearly very beneficial for that young people and that group of people who are in the average, which is much higher than national average, but equally very difficult to employers because of cost, because of time. Local growth funding, how we get on the front foot, how every single thing that we want to bid for through local growth funding is as worked up as the proposals that Angela was describing in her tiered model. The whole thing about patterns in the visitor economy, I don't think, you know, it's not our decision whether to impose a levy or anything, but we do have a lot of evidence that can help to advise on that decision. And I suppose the last thing, which goes back to what Councillor Bridgewood said at the very start of today's meeting about the conversation that took place last night with the farming community and DEFRA, it's important to the business community that they know that we're listening to them and that we are championing for them. So that's a quick whistle-stop tour of announcements over the last 10 days. And I guess, Chairman, I'd be interested in whether any of those things particularly resonate with the committee so that we can go away and work them up into a bit more of a detailed debate. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Baxter.
Thank you. I've lost my screen again. First, thank you for the presentation. You read it very well. Can we please, it's just really annoying, get an apostrophe right. When you put a apostrophe mistake on the front page, it just undermines my belief in the rest of the presentation. But having got that off my chest, the overnight accommodation, I thought that Dame Andrea had said that she doesn't want to bring in a tax on holidays for hard-working Britons. Does that mean that we should reject it overall, or should we be lobbying? If we are lobbying, and I can see the case for a visitor levy, is it possible, if she were to bring it in, would it be across the whole of Lincolnshire? Is it a one-size-fits-all, or could she be specific about where it is? So, for example, Skegness, that does need some money one way or another, is that the sort of place that could be a visitor levy could be levied, or alternatively, could you say, well, Skegness really needs people to come and buy cups of coffee and overnight accommodation, so leave them alone, but maybe pick on the Wolds or places where people are spending more on their accommodation and therefore perhaps have got more potential for paying the levy and subsidising the services. In terms of the industrial strategy zone, not entirely sure what that means. Is that concurrent with a free port? Are we talking about a free port? And if so, in this part of Lincolnshire, should we be talking about a free port? Because I thought Freeport was a northeast Lincolnshire thing. How does Freeport affect us? And you said, should we be looking at an industrial strategy zone? What would that look like? And would it be achievable before the county and districts are both abolished to make way for new unitaries? With regard to the local priorities fund, or I can't remember what the expression was, but what used to be the shared prosperity fund, you're saying that it's become unstuck. Is it now a free-for-all that we all kind of send in our bids to Dame Andrea and hope that ours catches her eye? I don't quite understand how that process works. I thought that it was kind of it was a collaboration between the mayoral authority with the districts and the county, but are you saying it's more competitive than that? I don't know.
So I am beyond devastated at the apostrophe. I do pick up everybody when they do it, so apologies for that. In terms of the tourism levy, we don't know at the moment. We're still waiting for that information, so we can't form a view. I guess the issue for me is one about how our access to data can help to inform any of that long-term thinking around that. In terms of industrial strategy zones, yes, there is one on the south bank of the Humber, but actually I do think that having different tax incentives which allow you to attract significant investment could be something which is a benefit for other parts of the county or another part of the county. So that's one that feels to me as though we should explore whether we have a chance of getting one, and we should explore whether we are missing out by not having one. So it's early days.
Where have you got in mind?
I don't have anywhere in mind. We haven't started the exploration yet. All I'm saying is, if we look at what was identified by the Chancellor, it was a priority on certain places. And one of the things she prioritised was industrial strategy zones. So if actually we're on the back foot because we haven't got one, we're not being prioritised, we need to decide whether that's something that we would want to explore. So certainly this is simply 10 days out from the budget, some thoughts about things that we may wish to pursue into the future. I guess in terms of the local growth fund, as I'd said earlier, we don't know enough yet about how that is going to work. The rhetoric is that it will go to combined authorities in the North and the Midlands. There have been funding allocations made, but until we see the guidance and until we see the expectations on the levels of collaboration, we simply don't know about that. But the critical thing that I would be recommending to you is that now that we know that some funding is becoming unstuck, we start to develop that pipeline of schemes that are your priorities and that we can try and attract some of that funding for.
Councillor Condell.
Just on the employment for youths, one of the things that prevents small businesses particularly even looking into this sort of thing is the paperwork and various paperwork that they have to fill in and all the forms that they've got to go through and all the hoops they've got to go through. I don't know how much impact that we can have on that, but one way to facilitate or make it easier for them when they're trying to run their own business is to make sure that the documentation and what they do have to complete and who they have to see and who they have to contact is as minimal as possible, and any information that they need to enter 6 or 7 times is preloaded into any forms that they do, because it just makes it easy for them to run their business and bring people in.
So one of the things that Councillor Kelly and I have been talking about is whether there is a way that you can help by having people employed by a third body and loaned into a business. Now there's a model which does exist, which is called an ATA, an apprenticeship training agency, which does just that. There are as many of them that fail in the country as succeed. There are some very odd tax implications, and there is also a bit of a challenge for them around who has that overall pastoral responsibility for the individual. So there's a lot of challenges, but at the same time, if that can overcome the risks that you've just described, then maybe we need to think about it. So I know Councillor Kelly has been saying to me since the elections, what do we do in that space? Is that something that we could explore? And with the Youth Guarantee coming up, it did feel as though it was something that we could explore. Whether that is LCC doing it, highly unlikely, LCC commissioning it, possibly, LCC bringing one of the others in, equally possible, I don't know. But that feels like something that the Exec Councillor is keen to explore, and you've raised too. So that might be something that we would look to take away. It would be a slow process because we don't have anyone who's actually sitting twiddling their thumbs and ready to do that work, but nonetheless, it feels like one of those that is a big statistical problem to the county and that there is a potential solution for.
Yeah, the simpler we can make it, the easier it will be, and the more people will get in.
Councillor Dyer.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Justin, for the report. You mentioned in response to Councillor Baxter funding coming unstuck from government, bidding into it, making sure the council is in a place to bid and accept that funding. Does Lincolnshire County Council, or is Lincolnshire County Council keeping track or monitoring funding that we could bid for from government or we could accept, but we are not, either through policy decisions by the administration here or policy decisions by the mayoral authority? I'm not privileged enough to sit on any of the bodies there, but I understand there was some renewable funding a few months ago that might not have been accepted, and potentially I saw something in the press recently about training courses for English courses. I'm just wondering whether, if we're not accepting various schemes of funding for whatever reason, is the council keeping track on what funding either the mayor or this authority is saying to government, no thank you, we don't want this, moving on? Because it'd be very interesting to know how much investment the administration and their mayor are not actually bringing into Lincolnshire. Is that something that we have on file?
No. We are part of the Combined Authority, of course, but clearly it's a different organisation. In terms of funding that we have chosen not to bid for, we don't monitor that, but it is a very, very long time since we've taken a decision of that nature based upon services that we deliver. And what we have seen, which is why I use the word unstuck, is essentially the last 18 to 24 months, the regeneration funding which county councils typically would have been able to access has largely been routed away from county councils. So the unstuck bit is important, but no, in terms of monitoring what we do and do not bid for, we don't hold that. And of course, that would be, you'd have to work out where things start and stop. Would we be monitoring something in social care? Would we be monitoring something in children's, etc., which I think would create a significant task.
Councillor East.
Thank you, Justin. Free zones, absolutely. This is going to transform the way we generate business by stimulating companies to see the opportunities that we could offer. I think it's absolutely a necessity. Having experienced it firsthand and actually starting a business within a free zone, it's a major leg up to growing business quickly, and from that you can then grow into greater society. So yeah, definitely, this is the way forward.
Councillor Corey.
Thank you, Chairman. Just following on from Councillor Dyer's question and Justin's response. So am I correct that we don't have data on the economic development impact of not assisting our population with their English language skills?
We don't know.
Who does have that data? Do we know what impact that decision will have?
I know that a number of people have written and provided data to the Combined Authority about that decision. It wasn't our decision. I've not seen their data.
Okay, how can we get hold of that data?
Well, presumably, as the Combined Authority is its own organisation, that can be sought from them. I don't know how they're going to implement that decision as yet, and so it's difficult to comment. It's not one that we've been particularly involved in.
Thank you. Councillor Dyer.
Sorry, thank you. Did LCC, before we had this great office of the mayor that I voted in support of, yes, no, I take that. Did LCC fund these courses way back then? And if LCC does LCC hold historic data on take-up economic impact, etc.
So we're a little bit off the subject of the Chancellor's autumn budget at the moment, aren't we? But in terms of the way we operate, the adult learning programme, which was devolved to the Mayoral Combined Authority, is in the order of £19 million. That includes the roundabout £2 million, which we commission as a provider. And it also includes the money that the government was sending directly to further education colleges for adult learning activity. So in terms of our work, we agreed a commissioning framework for our £2 million. We agreed it with the previous portfolio holder for Children's Services, and it included 5 priorities, which were around basic access to employment, literacy and numeracy. There was something about food sector and a couple of others I can't remember off the top of my head. We collect information about all of those activities that we carried out with the £2 million. There has never been a requirement to carry out an economic impact assessment for that. When we are visited by Ofsted, we can show them direct impact for individuals, but a strategic economic assessment of the type that you describe is not something that we've carried out.
Councillor Baxter.
Thank you. Just going back to the previous report that includes qualifications achieved by adults, target 942, actual 574. Does that include ESOL?
Yeah, I'm not sure that we commission any ESOL. If we do, it will be a very, very tiny amount of our provision, so minimal, if any.
Thank you. Regarding the youth scheme in the presentation you gave, I don't think youth unemployment is going to get any better anytime soon, and I definitely think that is something you and we should focus on. It's risky to employ young people, and the best way to alleviate that risk is to lower the cost. With apprenticeships, when I was in school, which you'll be surprised, it wasn't that long ago, everybody I knew was getting an apprenticeship in something, plumbing, carpentry, and following that they would get a job. When my brother was in school, he's younger than me, everyone went to college, but nobody got an apprenticeship or a job really following that. There was probably about 30 people in his college class, probably two or three got employment following training in a skillful role. So I'm looking forward to seeing what we can do to help young people get into work. Thank you. Any more questions? No? Okay, on to item... Oh no, I've got to move the proposal. I move that the committee is satisfied with the update and assurance given relevant to the implications for Lincolnshire's growth programme. Can I have a raise of hands? It's unanimous, thank you. On to item 9, Growth Scrutiny Committee Work Programme. The last item on today's agenda can be found on pages 63 to 68. This item enables the committee to comment on the content of its work programme. It will be presented by Chiara Hatsioanu, the Scrutiny Officer. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Dear members, this is a standing agenda item for this committee which invites you to review and comment on your work programme for the coming year. The purpose is to ensure that scrutiny activity is always focused in areas that the committee can have the greatest impact for the Council and our key partners. Members are asked to first review and approve the current work programme, and second, highlight any additional issues or items of community interest that would be considered for inclusion. Scrutiny should be constructive, independent, and focused on areas where it can add value. While not all suggestions can be included, members are encouraged to raise matters of importance to the local communities. I'm pleased to confirm that there have been no changes to the committee's work programme since the publication of the last iteration of this work programme in the public domain. And I'm also keen to note the suggestions that were made earlier under a different item consideration for future reports that could be included in the committee's work programme. And just to quickly summarise, the suggestions that were previously made today were a report on a quarterly capital repairs and maintenance monitoring programme, a windmill strategy update, a castle maintenance programme, and a condition report for our county's cultural assets. These items will be taken offline. We will have discussions with officers to make sure that they can be incorporated into the future work programme and agendas of this committee. If there's any further suggestions or recommendations from the floor, happy to take these now. Otherwise, please approach me offline. Thank you.
Councillor Dyer.
Thank you, Chairman. I did email you, but it was another email I've not had a reply to. I formally request, following the last meeting that we had, that the committee has an agenda item in respect to any changes to tenant lease agreements, rents, or how energy costs are passed on in respect to the economic development capital programme, the economic development side of things, that is come through committee. I think in emails that I've had and what Councillor Kelly described and what was described in the meeting, that may be lumped in with the budget setting process, but in my view, the changes to leases, arrangements to LCC tenants, that's a policy change, and in my opinion we should have a report come to committee to brief us on that. So that might be a particularly urgent one if changes are included within the budget setting process, Chairman. But I know at the meeting in January we have a number of the economic development officers already attending committee, so it'd be a timely committee meeting for us to discuss that if policy changes are being made. So I formally move.
Thank you very much indeed, Councillor Dyer. I will note this in the list of suggested topics and will liaise with officers in terms of feasibility, again, of this report as with any other item that has been suggested, and we'll get back to you. Thank you.
Second that, Chairman.
Thank you. Shall we move to a vote on that particular? Thank you. Okay, I move that we receive the report and approve the existing work programme as detailed in pages 63 and 68, including any amendments identified by Chiara and the additional items highlighted in discussion today. Can I have a raise of hands? Unanimous. Thank you very much. And then we just need to vote on the minutes because we didn't actually vote on them. We just proposed and seconded them. So could I see another raise of hands, please? Thank you. Both carried, and that will conclude the meeting. Thank you very much, everybody.